The first 3 months of COVID, it was so stressful because in 2020, I had bought our second home. And I already told my wife, we're gonna expand. We're gonna breed as many animals as we possibly can, because the year before that, I did 40 shows and I crushed every show. I go in and I run out of inventory. And I said, we need to hatch more babies. And I said, we're gonna breed as much as we can. No females, if they got follicles, we're pairing them. You know, we were just trying to get eggs. And so in 2019, we're doing all this towards the end, October, November, December, pairing heavy. And then all of a sudden, March 2020 comes and I'm on my way to Tinley Park. We're packed up, ready to go. And I get a call from Steve Casino, from Steve from Morph, and he says the show was canceled. And literally my stomach dropped because, you know, Tinley, that was my first Tinley I was gonna vend, and everyone have huge expectations for Tinley. You're going to Tinley making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and I have all my animals ready to go, and the show cancels. And then Arlington cancels, and then the next Repticon cancels, and my next 5 shows cancel. And I'm thinking in my head, I have 40 clutches of eggs already in the incubator and no shows to do.
The color stains idle hands. The redemption has come, just in time for me to bury my head in the color.
Howdy folks, Brian Cusco here at Triple B, and we've got Bob Vu on today.
This is super awkward to do completely by myself, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring Bob on.
But tonight's guest, I'll be Bob Vu.
Anyhow, without further ado, let's jump in tonight with Bob Vu. I've just now...
All right, so talking about Bob Vu. I think I met Bob Vu in 2015 or 2016. And I love Bob Vu's energy. He's a very charismatic, friendly individual. Bob is the type of person that you're around him and you naturally want to have his friendship. And what I mean by that is he's so charismatic, he's so engaging, and he's just a fun-loving guy.
We had a rough winter probably 3 or 4 years ago where the rodents down here just weren't doing well. They had a bad cold snap and everybody had a rodent shortage, and there was a bad fire at a facility in Miami and had to travel, and Bob was there to step in and, you know, was producing rats and was just a friendly enough guy that, you know, I wasn't on his list to, you know, but he made room for me to be able to keep my collection going when rodents down here were like really tough to come by. But just a guy that will jump in and help out anybody.
Dude, one thing I'll say about Bob, I respect the shit out of his hustle. That dude is vending shows in California, in Texas, God knows where. And I'm like, I'm picturing that and I'm like, if somebody said, hey, there's a show in British Columbia, do you want to vend? I'm like, I'm not going to Toronto, let alone BC. And Bob's out in Daytona and Arlington and Pomona. And I'm like, dude, you're driving across the freaking country to vend? And they do it, and they do it well. And their table is always top notch. It's super impressive to me. Like I could barely put snakes in my truck and drive an hour and a half to vend a show, let alone across the country. Like, no way.
I've never once been mean to Bob Vu. I'm really nice to him every time we see him, and if he says otherwise, he's full of it. First time I met Bob Vu, I'm sure it was at a show because we had bought several animals from him before we were formally introduced. But the first time we were formally introduced was at his home, at his facility, right after Stephen and I had our daughter. Like within a week of Stephen and I having a baby, he wanted to go down to Bob's place to pick up a Super Banana Sunset Girl from him. And when we were on our way, he was so nervous about, you know, because we just had a baby, so we were not on time. And by not on time, I mean we were probably going to be there 20 minutes late if we stopped, but only 10 minutes late if we didn't stop. So he was like stressed out about us being late to Bob's because Bob, oh my gosh, can't be late to Bob's house. What if he doesn't sell us the snake because we're 20 minutes late? That's like a legitimate thing that Steven said. And we got there and no, he was great. I don't even think he was there by the time we got there. I think he had run out to grab some lunch. So he didn't care at all that we were 15 minutes late and brought a newborn baby to his home. But he was super friendly the whole time. I feel like when we first got there, it was, I don't want to say it was awkward because it wasn't awkward, but Steven was so nervous. It was like palpable. You could feel it in the air how nervous Steven was. So anything Bob said, it was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Oh really, 100%. No, that's great, man. I totally, anything that you say. And when I'm like meeting someone for the first time, or if I'm like in a situation that I'm not like 100% comfortable, I tend to deflect through humor, as Steven says. So like Bob would be telling us about his, was it his emus? He's like, yeah, and so if you know anyone who's looking for an emu, I have emus I'm trying to move. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? And he's like, why, do you know someone? I was like, no, that's a ridiculous thing to say. So it was like, and then once those jokes started being made, I could tell everyone got more comfortable, because Bob has a great sense of humor. Steven, believe it or not, has a great sense of humor. And so once like somebody broke the ice, we just had a great time.
This is why all of our employees get free gym membership. Aaron, can you roll out the metal cart with the display, the 6 displays?
Yep. Eventually, I think we're supposed to forget the cameras are rolling, right? Yeah.
When I was first getting in and actually getting involved in the industry, not just like buying a ball python here, I wanted to be part of the industry. I want to be part of the whole business deal. But no one would take you serious at the time unless you spent $10,000, $15,000, because you can't get anything at the time you're not getting 3-4 gene animals at the time. So for me to buy my first piebald was $5,000. My first lesser was $1,000. I graduated college in 2011. I didn't have a job. I have a degree in psychology, so I wasn't able to get a decent job. So I went into doing sales, and I had about $50 in my checking account at the time. I had to call my mom to ask her to send me money to get my license for insurance, and that's how broke I was at the time. But again, I had reptiles, and I was spending all my money trying to feed these reptiles, and literally just flat broke every week. I went to work, and then all my money's gone. But over time, again, I feel like a lot of people put these unrealistic expectations of, I need to build my business in a year. We didn't do that. I came up with Bob's Balls, the name, like in 2012, 2013. The name has already been there. We didn't go full time in 2016. And then since 2016 is how we built all of this, with the volume that we have, or the animals that we have, and it's been close to 15 years of production, since then.
Yeah, we need the container of it.
What else do we have?
You got a banner?
Yeah, we got a banner.
Trash can.
Trash can. Then we are set to go. You guys want to see my sleeping arrangements? Oh, come. This is a cribs episode. All right. Right here, we got a single, Yeah, right how magic happens. Fits 2.
I met Bob because I had snakes. I was on active duty and had just gotten orders to Albany, Georgia to be a recruiter there. And that assignment took me from California, where I'd lived before and had a good source for feeders and had, the general logistics of taking care of my pet figured out, to a completely new area where I knew nobody and didn't have resources the way that I'd had in California. So being able to find feeders was the first challenge after I got settled in. I was very lucky that the second resource I found was a young kid that had just graduated from college and had a shed with some rats in it out back, and I had the chance to kind of screen him on Facebook ahead of time to make sure I wasn't, because I don't know who somebody is. He had ball pythons, and there was some pictures. He had one that was a butter. I was like, oh, I've never seen a butter in person. I had to go see it, and it worked out because I was going to pick up some rats, and he was like, yeah, come on in.
Investing at that time versus now, right now, if you're a new person getting into the industry, for $2,000, $3,000, you can have really nice projects. You can go on social media, make a nice business page, and basically blast yourself out there. At that time, if you haven't produced anything cool, if you haven't hatched a lot of babies, no one cares. And at the time, because of the name of the business, Bob's Balls, we did have a little bit of pushback of people following our page or trying to promote us as a serious business. You know, just the name alone, people didn't take us very serious. So that I had to kind of force myself to be out there more for them to take me seriously, that we will continue to come back and that we're not like a fly-by-night company. And it took quite a few years to get the name built up. But once now that has become the norm, the name is kind of just Bob's Balls. It's just kind of very generic now in the industry. I feel like for new breeders to come in now and come up with a wild name, it's okay. It's very acceptable in the industry now. I did my very first show. This was 2014. It was the most miserable thing ever. I didn't know anything. I came into the show. I didn't have table covers. I thought the promoters would provide that. I didn't have displays. I had glass cups that I put everything in. I didn't have a license. So when they came around to check licenses, I ran to the bathroom and hid for 30 minutes. And it was a miserable experience when I first started.
After the very first one that we did, it was a little cool outside. And he brought heat tape and like the stuff to set it up so the animals weren't off heat or anything. But when we did that, the tubs that we were using and the plexiglass piece over the top so that you could see into it, like they fogged up because it's not made for that. So we were kind of looking at like, okay, next time we do this, is there a way that we could show them off that wouldn't have them all fogged up to where you couldn't see them? And it was just a question of, can we do that better if we do this again? And then we did it again and tried different stuff to see if we could do it better.
And that's why right now we do a lot of things where we help other vendors, get started on their first shows. But after 5-6 shows in, I realized I had a really knack for selling things. Again, I sold insurance for years. I was a director for an insurance company. And I was able to just connect with people and build a relationship. And I was able to sell snakes pretty easily. And I did my first Atlanta Repticon, and we did $8,000 at that show. It was mind blowing. And when I went home to tell my wife I made $8,000 in one day at a show, she was like, "Why are you even going into the office tomorrow to do insurance? You love snakes, you love, this is your passion, and you clearly can make money at it." So that first $8,000 I made at a Repticon was basically what gave me the basic confirmation that I can do this. And that was when I would realize there's more to be done here. It was one show, we were able to do that. That means we can do this, we can repeat that process. And that basically helped me go full time. If you're gonna do this full time, there are three main components, in my opinion, that you need to be ready for. Number one is social media. Okay, unfortunately, in today's world, you can't just make awesome snakes. That's obviously you'd like to just produce awesome animals. People are gonna call you and buy them. Now, the other factor is that you have to market yourself. People will only spend money with people they like.
Before we even started breeding, and I was talking to Stephen about it, the idea of breeding snakes and then having snakes like in bulk and finding customers for those snakes, Stephen thought was absolutely an outrageous idea. He's like, what if you have 2 snakes and they have 6 babies? What are we going to do with 6 babies? How are you going to find 6 people that want snakes? Like locally, like where are you gonna find customers for that? He had no, neither of us were really into things yet. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't even know about Morph Market yet. But just the idea of finding customers seemed super daunting because we knew nothing about the community and the industry. So a big part of bringing him on board was Instagram. So showing him Instagram, showing him how you can find people through Instagram, how you can market yourself through Instagram. Not that he didn't know about Instagram, he just didn't know about the reptile world when it came to Instagram. So we started our Instagram account when we still had 2 animals, and we had 2 snakes, and we were in the process of buying 2 more. One was being shipped and one we were going to pick up. So the first week of our posting, we posted 4 different animals and cycled through. And then our Instagram was really used to bring in every animal. Anytime we bought a new animal, it like got, you know, a spotlight on the Instagram page, and obviously they still do, honestly, but we started from an Instagram page. Before we even bred any snakes together, before we even had both a male and a female, we had an Instagram page going. And some people don't like that. They think that if you don't have snakes, you can't have social media. I think that's a little silly because anybody can have social media. Before it was like a breeding business, it was just a personal Instagram that grew into a business account as our business grew. And everyone who followed us from the beginning to midway to now, they've seen kind of every single step of the way. They know that we have the animals that we say we have. We know that we're producing the animals we say we produce. And they know our personalities. They know, you know, that we're honest. They're comfortable talking to us. They're comfortable buying from us. And that's really what we want. We want people who are looking to buy an animal to say like, oh, here is somebody that I know if something goes wrong, I know they're going to take care of me, because if I put them on blast on social media, it would be devastating to them. So they've got that over our heads in case we do them wrong. But they've seen us, they know us. We are a member of the community just through social media. Before we vended a show, we were there through social media. Before we sold a snake, we were there through social media. And I think having just an account and putting yourself out there makes a huge difference when it's time to have somebody decide who they want to buy from.
It was 2016, I produced 50 clutches, and we're sitting there doing the math, breaking down the averages, and we were fortunate enough at the time that we didn't have a lot of bills between me and my wife now. We didn't have a lot of bills, so we're thinking in our head, well, we can just make $50,000, $60,000, we will survive, you know, we'll be fine, to replace my income at the time. I made $100,000 selling insurance, but that was like, we didn't need all that money. So I was thinking if we can make $50,000, we can survive for sure. And I'd be much happier. She was in college at the time too. She was in nursing school. So it was like extremely stressful as far as that part, because we only had one income. But we just knew that if I was gonna do this full time, we just have to make it work. And we did. That first year, we did a little over $100,000 in sales. You know, we did 50-something clutches, averaging, you know, almost $3,000 a clutch. But then you gotta count your holdbacks, your rodent costs, and all of that. But we ended up making $100,000 the first year, and we're like, well, we have to capitalize while what the industry is growing. We have to grow faster than the industry. So in 2016, 17, I tried to expand as fast as possible. And by 2018, we had outgrown our house, and I built a separate facility. It was a 40-foot by 12-foot by 40-foot facility I built separately from the house. And I was thinking in my head, man, this building is massive. We're never gonna outgrow this. And within 1 year, I filled the whole room up with racks and snakes and all my holdbacks. And by 2020, we had built our second facility, and we had already moved cities. We built our second facility. And by 2022, we built this facility, which is 5 times bigger than our second facility, and also 12 times bigger than our first facility. So yeah, it moved pretty quick, but because we knew we had to grow as a business faster than the industry itself was growing, because we knew the industry is growing, but we had to grow faster to stay ahead of the curve, if you will. The number 2 factor is planning your pairings to be strategically efficient. You know, running single gene passed out females, yeah, that's great. You're still gonna get eggs and stuff like that. But being efficient, you only have so much rack space. You can only produce so much a year. The amount of workload, right? So you want to be smart enough to produce enough to make enough money to stay in this industry, right? We all know it costs a lot of money to do what we do. You know, between equipment and just again, just our daily lives. So when you're planning your pairings, you have to make sure, in order to keep your average dollar per clutch high enough to keep you in the industry. Planning efficiently is very important.
We are able now to jump 3-4 generations ahead, like instantly, like within, because of shed testing, essentially. So if you look at the market and you look at in the past what has happened with incomplete dominant combos, because you're able to produce them quickly, and pick them all out, the value of them drops quickly. Essentially what we've done is turn recessives, which have historically been the value hold in the market, and turn them into an incomplete dominant. It's essentially what we've done. It's just that it's an incomplete dominant hidden behind a $50 paywall or whatever, $30, whatever the cost of the test is. Because now you can breed quad het males to double visual females or to clown females or to whatever. And you can start to really, now it takes luck. I'm not denying that there is luck involved, that there are odds still at play. But when you start to breed like quad hets together, historically, I have a clutch right there of quad hets that historically, if you bred a DG Xanthic clown pied, right? Those quad hets together, maybe you hit a DG clown. Well, is he het pied? Is he het Xanthic? Is he het for both? Is it not het for anything? Historically, there was like test breedings with that, which those are completely gone. Those are gone. There are no more test breedings because it's just shed tested. I know he's het for this. I know he's het for that. Boom, use him right away. And so right away, just in that distinction, you've shed probably a few years off of the speed of projects.
And then the third part, honestly, I will say is your work-life balance, okay? Because of what we do for a living, on a Sunday afternoon, I could be in my snake room for 4 or 5 hours, 6, 7 hours, and I still have work to do. There's just random stuff you can find. There's snakes you can take pictures of, a lot of messages you can respond to. But eventually that'll burn you out and it'll burn your family out. You know, having your significant other constantly say, hey, let's spend time together. Why are you in the snake room all the time? Blah, 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 stuff like that. Make time for your family, make time, because again, we do this so that we can enjoy our lives. You go into business for yourself so that your family and you can enjoy it, you know? So that work-life balance, when I say work-life balance, I don't mean try to split 33% of your attention to your family, 30, no. You're 100% in the snake room, get your snake room stuff done, and then when you're out of this, check out of this and spend 100% of your energy with your family. You know, that balance, and just don't half-ass both factors. You know, when you're doing snakes, do snakes. And then when you're done with this, go spend time with your family and split that off so that you can satisfy both sides, is what I'm saying. I feel like sometimes it's still surreal when someone comes to my table and mention me as like one of the old dogs that's been in here, and I'm like, I've only been in the industry for 15 years. But when I got in, I mean, so many people get in every year. We know this type of industry. People get in, people get out, especially during COVID, right? I feel like what separates me from some of these guys is, first of all, I don't know when to quit. Like I will go to every show. At the time when we first started, if I had a show that was a bust, we go in and we only made a few $100, it's okay. I'm gonna come back to that show still and still try it. I'll go to the very next show next weekend and then do it again. I feel like because I like reptiles enough that even when I went to a show and didn't make money, I was like, it's okay. I still got to spend the whole week doing reptiles, so I was very okay with that. Where it separates a lot of people coming into the industry that didn't make it is that they came in looking to become a breeder and to make money. I came into the industry, before it was an actual industry, I came into this hobby buying reptiles because I just thought they were cool. I actually love watching snakes eat. The fact that this animal with no arms is able to overpower this rodent and eat it, you know, and that's always fascinating. And I've been so fascinated with reptiles my whole life that even if the money went away and we're just able to make a modest living and just enjoy it, I would still be okay with that. And I had to be okay with that because we did that for years, you know. My first few years of breeding snakes, you know, 11, 12, 13, 14, I didn't make any money. I was just dumping money into the industry. I think like one of our years we were in the negative by like $20,000 just in rodent costs and stuff. But I was okay with that because I just enjoy the reptiles so much. And I feel like if you came into the industry thinking, I need to make money, I need to breed snakes, I need numbers and catch up to Justin, catch up to Ozzy and all this stuff, and that's where people fail because they put these unrealistic expectations on themselves to start with. I came in, I didn't expect anything from this industry. I just wanted to keep snakes because it was cool and I enjoyed the snakes. And then it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And because I'm very business minded to start with, I was like, okay, there's opportunities here and here, so we capitalize on those opportunities. But we didn't go in expecting this to be as big as it is now. I've actually had to talk a few people out of not going full time so early. The biggest factor is you're gonna put so much strain on your family. First of all, that's the biggest factor in my opinion, right? That's a strain on your family because now you're financially stressed. You're gonna take shortcuts. You're gonna try to do everything you can. You're booking more shows than you should, right? You're like, oh man, I need to really make this money. So you're booking more shows than you really need to. And then the strain on your animals. You're breeding everything possible. You're trying to push these animals too hard. You're breeding your males too hard. And then you end up losing animals, sick animals, stuff like that. But that strain on your family is gonna be more important than anything else because now you're taking time away from your family. You're financially stressed. You're acting different around your family because of it. And honestly, if you would have just taken an extra 6 months to a year, let those animals mature, let your plants develop, those babies that you bought 2 years ago, let them get some size. Don't breed that male at 6 months, 8 months old. Let that male get to his second winter and be mature, get some size on him and breed, and he'll give you better clutches. So take your time, don't rush into this full-time thing because it's overly glamorized on YouTube or anything like that. And just learn to enjoy the actual snake and the species itself.
I think the sheer volume of people that have gotten in the last little bit, I think that's likely going to correct itself. Once people get into this, and a lot of people, let's be serious, a lot of people look at this as like it's a license to print money, and it's absolutely not. There is way more that goes into this than just putting snake. Like everyone sees the fancy hatchlings, and it's like you do that every single day, and you're making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and that's just not the case for the majority of people. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be doing it on this scale if I wasn't making money, obviously. But there's more to it than that.
In 2020, would have been March 2020, when the Tinley news broke out and they didn't break out that the show canceled until 2 days before the show. Like literally, it's not like they gave us a week notice. Like literally 2 days before the show, they're like, hey, no show. And I messaged Chad Hoker, and Chad was like, oh, we still going. And I was like, what? Like, why would, he goes, well, hotels are paid for, and we're just gonna go and hang out and drink at the bar. And I was like, that sounds kind of fun. I loaded all my animals back into the racks, and I drove up there with an empty car. And in my mind, I'm just gonna go hang out with my friends. It's a 12-hour drive, it'll be fine.
So I'm driving to Tinley Park, and like I always do, and because I vend out every Tinley Park show, I love my Tinley Park customers. Anyway, we're headed there, and I'm en route. It's Thursday night. Winston calls me up, and he's like, hey, the show has been canceled. Brian Potter says it's off because of the COVID situation, blah, blah, blah. We can't do it. And I was like, I already had some deliveries I had to make there at the show. And I remember I go, Winston, I'm still coming. I want to see you. We wanted to see each other anyway. We wanted to deliver these snakes to the customers.
So Tinley was happening, and I'm like, I'm going. I don't give a crap. I am going. And he's like, I'm going. And I'm like, okay. And so the next day I'm like, you driving? He's like, I'm driving. I'm like, all right, I was driving over from Michigan. I'm like, okay, I'm getting in the rental. I'm driving. So we're driving over. Everybody's calling. There was like electricity in the air because there was just all this anticipation. What's going to happen? We got there Thursday, and I want to say, yeah, they canceled it on Thursday night as everybody was kind of coming in. So I got there. I remember seeing Will Morose in the lobby, which honestly, I was kind of starstruck. I was like, whoa, Will from Canada? Like, I know you from online.
So I drove up there, and as I check into the hotel, one of the other vendors told me, hey, if you're walking down the aisle, the rule is, if you're in business, if you're open for business, there's a business card on your door.
So Saturday morning, you started to hear the first talks of people being like, well, this person's doing this in room whatever, this person's doing this in room whatever. So we got our displays and we set them up in the room.
Winston had got a suite in the hotel, at the Even Hotel there, and so he had a big hot tub in his room and all that, but we ended up turning our hotel rooms into basically, that's where we sold our snakes. And there was still people showed up. Bob Vu, perfect example for a Bob Vu to integrate into this.
So as I'm walking down the rows of the hotel, there would be business cards stuck to the door, and you would just knock, open up, and there will be displays set up on their bed, or there'll be deli cups set up, and you can just go in and shop. And I would go from room to room to room and basically treat them like booths. You go from one booth, oh, okay, cool, thanks, and go to the next one and buy an animal and just bag it up in their hotel room.
And Bob, of course, was going to bring all this people and buy and sell, snakes. And Bob was like, turn that into opportunities. Like, I can buy snakes at this show and blah, blah. And he had his customers because, Bob always comes with an entourage of individuals.
I went to Chad Holker's room and he had a full table set up. Lights, literally displays out, heated, everything. And it's just like a show. And that ended up being one of the most fun shows we ever did. We literally just, I'm not going to mention which breeder this is, but we went up to the top floor. Hot tub is running.
Winston had got a suite in the hotel, at the Even Hotel there, and so he had a big hot tub.
Chilling in the hot tub. We had snakes out here. Yeah, snakes are out. Hot tub jacuzzi running. And we're literally just dealing snakes, and then he hops out of the hot tub, wraps a towel, and said, all right, let's do business.
We had so much fun. We turned that hotel into our own little party landscape / where we were selling out of our hotel rooms. And I just remember having the best, most blast, just having so much fun and not having to be on my feet and be in the expo and set up and do all that. Some people were even putting their banners up outside their hotel rooms till the hotel staff told us that we couldn't do that. And it was just, it was just a lighthearted, just fun, crazy, entertaining show.
Actually made quite a few good friends at that show that we're still friends with to this day. It felt like being a part of reptile history, And
I'll never forget, because me and my wife, we had left Sunday afternoon because there was no show times, and we left Sunday afternoon and we made a buttload of money. We sold a bunch of snakes.
It was there wasn't so much fear in the air. It was just electricity and a sense of this is kind of special. You know what I mean? And then by Sunday, I was leaving on Sunday because that was my scheduled flight out. I'm like, I'm not changing it. So Sunday, the hotel cleared out. Everybody said goodbye. And by midday, all of a sudden I went to go get some water from a gas station, and they had no water. And I'm like, whoa, went over to Target, no water. And I'm like, this is starting to feel like Florida the day before a hurricane. And the vibe sort of shifted. I went back to the hotel, and it was just me. There was a few people leaving, and then one construction guy checking in. So I checked my flight, and there's been a run at the airport. The flight was temporarily canceled, and then they ended up bumping it to the next morning. But a bunch of people, I guess, were worried they wouldn't be able to get out of the city or something. But there was a big commotion at Midway, so they moved my flight. So I spent Sunday night at the hotel, and that was eerie.
The first 3 months of COVID, it was so stressful. And then Arlington cancels. And then the next Repticon cancels. And my next 5 shows cancel. And I'm thinking in my head, I have 40 clutches of eggs already in the incubator and no shows to do. And no money was coming in, right? Because we weren't able to ship any animal. FedEx was shut down for COVID during March. And we had no way of making money. No one was leaving their house. And it got so stressful. And I was like, I'm gonna deliver snakes. And literally I posted on Facebook, I said, I'm willing to drive from Georgia all the way up to Kentucky or even further if anyone's placing any orders. And I was driving from Georgia to Kentucky. My longest drive was, I drove all the way to Chicago to deliver packages, but on my way there, I would drop off 15 boxes all along the way. And I would just stop in at different breeders' houses and we'd just hang out, have dinner. And that's how we got through that first COVID start. Once we hit like June, July, August, when things went crazy, when FedEx opened back up shipping and shows opened back up because Florida did not care about COVID. We did Daytona 2020, it was open. Arlington was back open by fall, and we went back into doing shows, you know, and just to get past those first 3-4 months of COVID was like so much stress because my wife is in the medical industry, she's a nurse. And so every day she's talking about like people are dying, all this stuff's happening. We're like, man, everything's gonna shut down. And I have invested everything in this industry. I haven't sold an insurance policy in 4 years, so I don't even remember how to do that. And I was like, I can't go back to that job. And we have, you know, 500 animals here depending on us and to feed them and all this stuff. But those first few months was probably the most stressful months with it while I was in this industry for sure. And so October comes around and we still know Tinley. They got moved to Schaumburg. And then the following year, 2021, we did the first Tinley ever. And I'll be honest, when I set up for Tinley, and I've already done over almost 200 shows at this point, with Repticons and all these other shows, Daytona too. I've done 200 shows at this point. And I was feeling nervous vending a Tinley show. So I go out there and I set up, and I have my set up very professional and banners and everything. Then I realized on my left was Garrick DeMeyer, on my right was Sea Serpents, behind me was Brock Wagner, and all these big guns are there, and all these ball pythons, and Justin is like 3 rows down. We got Levance, we got all these guys, and I was like, I don't even belong here. Like, what am I even doing here? And I was like, I can't sell a snake here. There's these guys that are famous, you know? And as we made our first sale, second sale, and it's starting to roll through, and by noon Saturday, I think we had made like $25,000 in sales. And I was like, holy crap, we can actually compete with these guys. And you know, looking at our animals and looking at their animals, the difference is, I'm like, the difference is just the name. The difference is just me going, wow, I've looked up to these guys for so many years. That's why I was nervous. And I was so scared that someone's gonna find, you know, a snake poop or a shed or a stuck shed or something on one of my snakes. That's what made me more nervous than anything. I looked through my displays every like 10 minutes, make sure of a snake poop. I had to clean it out immediately. I didn't want like if Justin to walk by my table and he sees like there's a snake shedding or something like that, and you know, be embarrassed by that. And then after you've done these shows for a while, you're like, this happens to everybody. Snakes poop, like it just happens. And you can walk by any major breeder and there'll be either a dirty display or something like that, and you feel a little bit less self-conscious about your setup. And now when I go to a show, I go to Tinley, Arlington, it's just like going to work now. I feel like I go there, I just hang out with my friends, I come in, I get to, you know, say hey to the promoters and just set up and do my thing. But the first time vending, oh man, I was nervous. Even though I've already vended 200 shows before that. Your first Tinley it's always nerve-wracking. Yeah. Tinley is unlike any other show anywhere in the world because the magnitude of ball python, like just the ball python breeders there. You go there. I attended my first Tinley Park show. It was 2017. I flew to Chicago. I took my wife and a few other friends, and we attended our first Tinley. And when I got there, I got so overwhelmed. There was so many ball pythons. And the best breeders that you've been following on YouTube. Again, at the time I had just gone full-time the year before that. No one knows who I am. I'm full-time breeder in South Georgia, you know, and I've vend Repticons. So these guys don't have any clue who I am, other than they saw me post a few times on Facebook, and they're like, and you know, at the time I was proud of making pastel enchi pies and stuff like that. So I go to the show in Tinley 2017, and I meet guys like Garrick DeMeyer, I met Mark Bailey, and I'm starstruck by some of these guys. There's a picture of me in Daytona actually one year with Mike Wilbanks, like just behind me, tiny little, and I'm like taking a selfie with Mike Wilbanks behind me because I used to watch all his videos, you know. And to go to Tinley and meet these people in person, and the first time someone actually says, oh no, we know who you are, you know, because they saw me post or something, I'm like, holy cow, this is the power of Facebook. These guys who've been breeding for years, and in my opinion are like the top dog, the superstars of the industry, actually know who I am. So our best show ever was Tinley 2022. And then that Daytona 2022 was also our best Daytona ever, and it was very close in numbers. Daytona, I feel like I have more of an advantage because I have such a big following in the Southeast. A lot more breeders here know me in Georgia and Florida, so we're able to close on a lot larger sales. Guys like really save their money for 6 months to come out there and buy stuff from us. And so Daytona and Tinley has been phenomenal for us. Arlington will be a close third. Arlington is a great show. It's another NARBC show. It's a big show. It's now got moved to Dallas, but it's still, I think it's still expected to be a good show.
When we got in, Bob was like a big name. We didn't start breeding until 2020, and at that point he was already like an established person, especially in our region, because he's from Atlanta. We're only 2.5 hours away from that. So people in our area love that Bob is there and he's accessible. He does shows. There's a lot of big breeders in Georgia, but not all of them vend shows in Georgia. So if you were to go to a Repticon, this is when Bob was still vending like Repticons. If you were to go to a Repticon that Bob Vu was at, like that was a big deal. Like people, you could hear people muttering like, "Oh my God, Bob Vu is here." And I think, especially when we first started, it gave him kind of like a celebrity status where, look at this guy with his flashy car and his flashy snakes and suggestive logo. As you get, as we've been in a little longer and you start to like understand things and you get to know people and a little better, you can see that the way he was able to do that was he was kind of like, he wasn't an old head like a lot of the like super, like people who've been in for a super long time, but he still has that kind of status as they do. And a big part of that is he was one of the first people to really utilize social media with his Facebook page and doing like Facebook videos and lives and stuff like that, where he put himself out there, like all the way out there very early on, back when people were still using like forum chats. He was moving over to social media. And I think people associate him as being one of the first people to really bring the reptile industry to social media, and that gained him a ton of followers. And people, when they follow you on, it almost gives you a feeling of meeting a celebrity when you meet someone that you've only ever seen online. And not that that is like an inflated thing, but I think especially during COVID, when so many people were new, like the percentage of new people was at its all-time high, having these people that already had kind of like a celebrity status, it just blew them up even more. And over the last several years, I'm sure that like things seem more obtainable, or they're more realistic. Your perception of things get more realistic over time. But I think the entire time he's doing snakes, he's gonna be a little bit of a celebrity.